if we could, let's revisit Matthew 6, as we're still in the series concerning where's your heart. Matthew 6. And we'll just take a look at verse 21, and then we'll take another look at another verse a little later. Matthew chapter 6, verse 21 states the following. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. For where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. Amen. You may be seated. Where's your heart? Where's your heart? As we've shared on last week, that the aim of God's activity in our life, the reality of who he is, it's centered around him desiring to be on the throne of our heart, the center of our heart, and that his activities push us to a place where we are drawing closer to him. The Bible says, if you draw nigh to God, he'll draw near to you. And so his whole aim is to get us to reposition our hearts, that we're drawing closer to him as every moment elapses. And we looked at last week that when it comes to our heart, one of the things that is highlighted the most through our cultural and social phenomenons now is that everything is centered around money. Money has found itself being equivalent to the adoration of God, unfortunately. And so even in the days of the Bible, in Matthew chapter 6, he states that when it comes to having idol gods, when it comes to having another deity in your life, you cannot serve me and money at the same time. Money was never designed to be a master. It was never designed to be your Messiah. It was only designed to be used as a source, or resource rather, to help you accomplish that which God wanted to do in your life. It is a resource, but we treat it like it is our source. And so the activity of God does not hinge on money. God can do more without money than he can with it. And so there is no allegiance that is required to money. However, we surrender it. There is no worship that is given to money, but we give it anyway. And unfortunately, we find ourselves at the whims of money. Whatever it calls, we answer, we make sacrifices, we extend ourselves, we stretch ourselves to acquire more of it. And no matter how much we put our hands on money, it is extremely elusive. It is not very faithful, and it's not very loyal, because the moment I have it in my grasp and in my warm embrace, somehow money wants to leave me. And so unlike having God, who is always near and dear to our hearts, he never leaves us, he never forsakes us. However, though money reminds us, culturally for us, even our system that has been designed for us to acquire money and for it to be at the pinnacle of our society, even the money that we have created in our culture and our society, even points back to say that in all that you do, don't trust in me, in God we trust. However, we dismiss even the messages from our societal money system that we have. And even in that, whether it is a coin, it'll tell you it's in God we trust. And whether it's on a dollar bill, it'll tell you in God we trust. But the irony and the hypocrisy is that even though I am holding it in my hand, and though I'm acquiring it, I am more in love with what's in my hand and less of having God in my heart. And we find ourselves, although what I possess in my hand says, I'm trusting in him. My trust is in him and not this. My trust is in him and that. But the irony is, really, our heart is really directed in putting our trust in the dollar bill. And the lack thereof can cause my mood to fluctuate. If I have a whole lot of money, I feel like I'll have a whole lot of joy. The less money I have, the less joy I have. The more money I have, the more I feel like I have opportunities. And so for many of us, we find ourselves at this crossroads where we have to make a choice whether I use money as a resource and allow God to be my source, or I allow God to take a back seat or to step down and I put a stack of money in its place. And so God even says, for context for chapter 6, that you can't serve both of us. You can't serve both of us. Either you're going to love me or despise the other, or you will cling to the one and you will walk away or hate me. So you can't have both. And although we think I can have money and God, you cannot allow both to capture your heart. And it's the love, it's the adoration, it's the adornment, it is the excitement, it is the thrill of trying to acquire it. Falling in love with money becomes the very base, foundation, or the root, as Paul would say to Timothy, is the root of all evil. And so as we have discovered over the several weeks, is that the people that you see that do unethical, immoral things, it's not at the very core of who they are that they are wretched and they are just awful individuals. It's that love for money has caused them to forsake and to blur the lines of ethics and morals just so that they can feel like they have a hand in life, that they can have more opportunities and acquire more stuff. But later Jesus tells, what purpose would it serve you to gain everything here in this dimension, but at the exchange of gaining more money that you intact lose your soul? So there is not a fair balance that comes with money. We discovered that money is not loyal at all. At all. It has no problem getting inside of our pants and getting into the next person's pants. Money ain't loyal. Doesn't like to stay in any type of long-term relationships at all. In fact, money loves to address every idea that you have. Money is very entrepreneurial. It's a fixer-upper. Something breaks, it rushes to fix immediate problems. You have a desire, let's address it. You want something to eat, not in your refrigerator, in your cupboard. Let's go out and let's find something new and exciting. Money loves to please, but even more loves to disappoint. Money never gives long goodbyes, Ashley. Just a quick hello and we'll walk off just as soon as you exchanged numbers. And so Jesus is really pushing the point. Don't fall in love with this. Because as fast as it comes into your life, it will never be able to love you the way that I love you. It will come into your life, give you a euphoria of happiness, but I will come and I'll give you joy. And as long as the money stays, that's the length of your happiness. But the longer you allow me to stay in your heart, the longer I'll give you joy. And with me, even if the money walks away, I'll replenish it with something else. Don't be so concerned with George Washington's and Lincoln's, because when they walk away, I can bring you Benjamins. But if you're like me and I'm very familiar with Jacksons. Do you know who Jackson's is? Do you know what numerical value is Andrew Jackson? Y'all don't even know, do you? Y'all don't even look. Y'all just look at the number. Y'all don't even look at the pay. What is it? It's 5. It's 5. Yeah. Jackson is 5? What I got 20s then. Hello. I had before it left me again. So I wanted to share something with you. As we've been talking about money, and from the example last week, we talked about that God gives seed to the sower. We've quoted this before, and you may have heard it in other religious circles, that God gives seed to the sower, right? And we use the example of tasty sunflower seeds. We had the example of sunflower seeds. We had the example of someone eating cherries. And then we also had someone eating seedless grapes. Okay? Sunflower seeds, cherries, which had a seed in it, and then we had someone eating seedless grapes. One of the things that we've learned as it relates to the exchange of money, that it is a spiritual principle that extends beyond whether or not you believe God or not. It is something that is relative in the spirit realm, but also in the natural realm. So that if you have a seed, you have two options with bearing a seed. That everything that God puts into our hands, we saw the example. One person consumes the sunflower seeds, they eat it for enjoyment. The other person had a cherry, they had what they need. The source of what they had was a cherry. The cherry was designed to address the need, but embedded within God addressing a need through the cherry, he also puts inside of the need, you have the ability to also tap into your tomorrow, okay? And then you also had the seedless grapes. The person who had the seedless grapes can consume to take care of their today. There was nothing to plan for or to anticipate for tomorrow. It was only able to address the immediate need. Nothing further beyond that. Nothing beyond that. And so when we looked at the principle that God gives seed to the sower, one of the things to keep in mind and consider is that the more that we continuously eat our seed, then why should God give more seed to the sower? If you're not sowing seed and you're only eating your seed, what would be the purpose of him giving more seed? He'll just meet the basic need. And the problem is so many people eat their seed so much that they have nothing to carry them into their tomorrow or to cover their immediate harvest that they want to try to sow into. So when we look at the principle of sowing and reaping, whether it is a spiritual principle or a natural principle, person who has fruit, they have an option. I can consume the entire fruit, or I can also take the seed out and consume the seed. So I have an option. I could either sow it or I can eat it. I can sow the seed or I can eat the seed. And you've seen from principle that some people choose to eat seed for taste and enjoyment instead of sowing sunflower seeds to have way more. People choose to eat sunflower seeds because my immediate desire is that I want taste now. I'm not concerned about my tomorrow. And even when we buy fruit now, just principally, notice what we do as a culture, that even when we buy fruit now, no one looks towards taking the seed from the fruit that we purchase, bagging it, and using a plot of land or a large pot, sowing that so that I can go ahead and produce the same thing I went out to go buy. But what I will do is take the seed, discard the seed, eat the product, and then go back and replicate it when I have my potential in my hand to yield into my tomorrow. I'm not thinking about my tomorrow because we have developed a mentality, I am a consumer. I am a consumer. So I just consume everything that comes into my hand. I don't think towards tomorrow, so it overflows in every aspect of my life, even in the habits of how I eat. I don't set anything aside. I toss. I toss. I don't think about tomorrow. I toss. And so it leaves me with the possibility and the potential of tapping into my tomorrow and destroying what I could have had for another day. We don't think that way. And the same thing happens as it relates to the condition of my heart. I never condition myself to think about tomorrow. My heart is always driven on satisfying my now. Whatever my flesh wants in this moment, my heart is set on giving it now. Therefore, I am willing to compromise and sidestep principles and morals and ethics just so that my flesh can have its now. Not tomorrow, it's now. Candy even came out with a title of having some enjoyment now and also on tomorrow. They called it now and laters. But what you would do is you eat your, and you don't even want to say it in 2 words, 3 words, now and laters. You will combine it as to 1 word, now laters. Now laters. Now laters. 9 latest. And you won't eat that little small pack of 5. Eat a little bit now and save a little bit later. No, you eat those little 4, whether it is the banana flavor, whether it was the cherry flavor, whether it was a watermelon flavor. You'll eat the 9 latest. When? Now. And so in every aspect, we want to give our flesh what it desires, even in this moment. Interesting enough, throughout history, the man can't even rest in peace. Have you ever heard of Judas? What is Judas known for? Okay, stealing, betrayal. Do you realize that he was a part of the 12 disciples? Judas. He wasn't like somebody who followed them. It was kind of hanging around the group as the 13th one. He was a part of the 12. He was chosen. He was selected. He was recruited. He was recruited. He was invited by Jesus to come and to follow him. Would you agree with me that God knows everything? Then why would he choose his betrayer? He wanted to have his feelings hurt. He wanted to be let down. He wanted to be made a fool of. That he can't pick good friends. He has bad taste in company. Why would, if we would agree that Jesus knows everything, why would he choose somebody that you call a betrayer or someone who steals money, right? Why would he choose this individual? And ask this individual to leave your job and follow me for 3 years. I will take care. You follow me, I'll take care of you. You follow me, I'll make sure that all your needs are met. If you devote your life to following me, my promise to you is I'm going to take care of you. Follow me. Why would you choose someone that you know at the end of this journey is going to betray you? You don't like to pick people around you that talk about you, who are users, who are crafty, sneaky, deceitful individuals. If you wouldn't choose a person like that to be in your circle, but why would Jesus do this? There is a point to this. Jesus selects him. Jesus selects him, invites him to hang with him. I want you with your sneaky self. I know you're going to betray me, but I want you in my squad. You cannot be trusted, but I want you in my squad. At the turn of every year, we say, oh, I'm letting certain people go. They can't hang with me. I'm going into the new year, new me, new stuff, new clothes, new attitude, new heart, new everything. Old stuff can't go with me where I'm getting ready to go in my new year. So therefore, all those flaky friends, you can't go with me. I'm cutting people off. But was that the model of Jesus? Was he cutting people off? In fact, he chose the people that you wanted to cut off. The people you didn't want to go into your new year, that's the ones he said, listen, I want you to come, I want you, I need you to come with me. Follow me, and I'll make you fishers of men. I'm going to use your life. I want you to follow me. You can't be trusted. You got an issue. What's his issue? What's his issue? Let's talk. I don't got a lot of time. Let's talk. What is it? Money, greed. Okay, money, greed. Consensus says money and greed. That's your issue? Good. When you roll with me, you're going to be responsible for dealing with the money. That's not our logic. That's not our reasoning. You don't put, to us, it don't make sense humanly, you don't put someone that you know is going to be a betrayer, someone that you know who's going to steal, someone that you know who has an issue with money, you don't put them in your circle and then give them a responsibility over an issue that you know they got a problem with. That's like, do you put somebody in an area that you know that there's their deficiency, and it's I'll just let you have your way over here in this area. This is exactly what he does. So for 3 years, with him having a deep embedded issue with money, stealing, he puts him responsible for counting the money when they would go from city to city. Now, again, they lived off of whatever the people gave them. Jesus and the 12 didn't have jobs. They walked away from it to do full-time ministry. So wherever they went, people would give to sustain them. And when they would collect the money, all the 12 would turn around, or the 11 would turn around and give the money to who? Judas. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. And Jesus knew this. Knowing this, that this pattern of taking, now, again, Judas is responsible for being the steward over God's resources. He is to be a steward over everything that came in. He is a steward over everything that came in. It doesn't belong to Judas, but he's taking something that doesn't belong to him. I'm going to go somewhere real quickly. He's taking something that does not belong to him, and he has the responsibility of managing something that really belongs to the kingdom. But because he has responsibility over it, he feels that he has rights to take for something that doesn't even belong to him. And notice, Jesus never calls him out in front of everybody. Jesus knows that he is doing it, but he never calls him out on it and embarrasses him in front of everybody. In fact, he says, listen, this is what one of you guys is going to do. Tells you what the scenario is, but never puts him out on Front Street. Never does it. Interesting enough. Judas represents some of us. See, Judas is known historically, and he gets a bad rap for being a betrayer. So if you ask people, who were the two worst people in the Bible? People wouldn't say Moses, even though Moses was known for murdering somebody and being a fugitive for 40 years and on the run. He's known for liberating the people, but he was still a murderer. No one really talks about that. That's not the bad thing. You know, because he hid the body in the sand. He covered up the dead body in the sand, and he just fled and went on the other backside of the desert. And he hung out in abscondence for like 40 years, right? Then he comes back and he frees people. He's like, you know, that day's Harriet Tubman, right? So no one has a problem with that. So would you say like David? You know, David slaughtered some people, but he also killed the Goliath. So like, no, he gets a pass, even though David also murdered people, right? And he also arranged a hit, right? So that's not a bad thing. We still like him. We still read his stuff. He's still cool, right? That's not a bad issue, right? But when it comes to, you saw identifying and selecting the two worst people, one would say, depending on the person and their perspective, one would say Peter. Why? Because he denied Jesus once, twice, 3 times. And Jesus said he was going to do it. Peter is really, like, he denied Jesus. But then some people's like, nah, he ain't the worst. The worst would be Judas, because Judas betrayed him. How you going to be with Jesus and betray Jesus the same way that we do? Wow. This is why he selects him as a teachable moment. Jesus always keeps people around him that are relative and that you can relate to, and he doesn't put them in his circle so that you can look at them and point fingers, but he puts people in his circle amongst the 12 so that you can see a mirror image of who you really have been and who you are at times. So some of us have had issues with the Judas effect. The Judas effect is when you have responsibility of being a steward over something that does not belong to you, but you feel like you can manipulate it, you can do whatever you want because you have access to something that is not yours. And so where the bigger issue is when you get to Matthew 26. Let's take a look real quick. Matthew 26. I want you to see this and then we go around. Matthew 26. Matthew 26, let's look at verse 14. Matthew 26, verse 14. Then one of the 12, called Judas Iscariot, we didn't even know he had a last name. Yes, it's Iscariot. Judas Iscariot. Yes, that's his last name. All right. Went to the chief priests and said, what are you willing to give me if I deliver Jesus, talking about him, deliver Jesus to you? And they counted out to him 30 pieces of silver. So from that time, he sought opportunity to betray Jesus. He sought after an opportunity and a window to betray someone that he saw feed 5,000, raise people from the dead, give sight to the blind, heal those who could not walk, a woman who had an issue of blood for 12 years, He looked for an opportunity to betray the person that he seen do miracles. Right? So, let's come up for here. What are you willing to give me in exchange of this relationship I have with Jesus? I have a relationship with Jesus, and I'm willing to put my relationship on the line for what you can put in my hands. What are you willing? My relationship is everything to me with Jesus, but I'm willing to exchange it for some money. My relationship is secondary when it comes to what you can put in my hand. What trumps everything right now is not my relationship with the master, it's that my relationship with that money, how much you can put in my hand. They say we'll give you 30. They count out 30 pieces of silver. 30 pieces of silver. Judas Iscariot exchanges his relationship with Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. 30 pieces of silver. They're not like nickels. Do you know how much that was in today's money? Roughly, it could be each silver coin, all right? I'm coming at you, Eli, all right? Real quick, you're good with math. Here we go. Here we go. Focus. Here we go, Eli. 30 pieces of silver. Judas Iscariot says, I'm willing to exchange my relationship with Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. They count out 30 pieces of silver. Each silver coin was worth, in today's money, about $20. How much total did he have? Louder. $600 in today's money. He sold out the King of Glory, the Lord of Lords, his Redeemer, for $600. $600. He allowed to exchange a relationship that will ultimately lead him being whipped on his back 39 times, and his flesh ripped, and his skin pierced with nails longer than 9 inches into a wooden stake. Both hands, both feet pierced in the side for $600. $600. So when you see Jesus, images of him nailed to the cross, it cost $600. Judas was willing to exchange his relationship of the master for money. Why would Jesus select someone who would sell him out for $600 in today's currency? Some of us, no, let me go first before I say this point. They make a deal. Your flesh is asking, what can I exchange for my relationship? I want more money. I'm willing to put my relationship with Jesus secondary behind me so that I can acquire more money, so I can keep it. I've already been having a pattern of stealing from him anyway, so this ain't nothing to me. I've had a pattern of this. This ain't nothing new for me. This is my pattern. I've been doing this for some time. I've been taking from Jesus, even though it belongs to him. I was only supposed to manage what was already his. I've had a pattern of consistently taking a little bit here, taking a little bit there, thinking that no one notices. And because he didn't say something about it, because he didn't check me, because he didn't put me out in front of everybody, I assumed he didn't recognize or realize it. I was thinking that maybe my sins didn't catch up with me in this area. In fact, it may not even be a sin at all because there was no corresponding action. I was taking and stealing from the kingdom. I kept stealing from Jesus, and he never said anything. He never put me out there. He just kept loving me. He kept being there for me. He kept making sure I had a place to stay, made sure I had a place where I could sit down and eat. He always made sure I had everything I needed. And I thought because he met my needs that he wasn't going to respond to me negatively. So I kept stealing from him. And when I had an opportunity to steal a little bit more and exchange my relationship so that my flesh can get what it wants. Tell me what you just need to be able to identify, because it's always, there's no social media then. There's no cameras back then. It was only word of mouth. So it's 13 of you guys. We don't really know which one it is. We heard that he rose with 13. It's 13 of y'all total. So that we're not apprehending and arresting the wrong assailant. We really need you to help identify. But don't be obvious with it. You know what I mean? We need you to spend some time with Jesus. And what we need you to do is show him a sign of affection. And when I see that you're showing him a sign of affection, that's our moment to go ahead and apprehend him. That's all we need. So Judas is like, okay, what I will do is I'll call him Rabbi. I'll call him Master. I'm going to steal from him. I'm going to take from him. And I'm going to exchange my relationship for this money. But what I'm going to do in his face, in the moment where it really counts, when there is a crowd watching me, I'm going to call him Master in front of everybody. And when I call him Master in front of everybody, that's the one you know who I took from. And I made this exchange for our relationship just for these coins. That's what the term, I got to get these coins. That's where that comes from. Judas effect, right? I kind of threw that in there. I made it up, but it sounded real good, right? So I tried it, right? He comes, I can stretch anything, right? He comes and shows up. When he sees Jesus, Jesus is very clear about what's getting ready to happen. He walks up to him. There is a large crowd, Kendra. Can you get this? There's a large crowd. Jesus is only rolling with 3 people, Peter, James, and John. The other 8 are back somewhere else. The other 8 are somewhere else. The 12th one shows up with the crowd. Judas. Judas comes with the crowd. And when there's a crowd watching, Master. And he walks up and he gives him affection. He kisses him on his cheek. He shows him a sign of affection. Why did Jesus choose Judas? So we see a mirror. So all across on Sundays, people show up in the crowd, Harlita, and they'll lift their hands and they'll say, Master. Yeah, God. And the moment of betrayal doesn't happen until we say it's time to raise our offering. Then the relationship is exchanged. Because I'll call you Master, but what I really meant was my money. And he exchanged, I'll show you affection, but I'm not giving you allegiance. In front of the crowd, I'll act like, even to your own eyes, I'll act like I'm into you. The meanwhile, I'm stealing from you. And I'll call you Master, and I'll put on this show, and I'll give you affection in front of everybody, like I so love you, and I'll do this during service, and I'll do this in service, and I'll spin, and I'll dance, and I'll sing about you. How great is our God? Say with me, how great. Oh, you're great, God, you're great. Is our God. You are marvelous. You are amazing. You are great. You do great things. You are way maker, miracle worker. You're a promise keeper. You're a light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. Not in my wallet, but in theory you are a way maker. And I'll show everybody that you are great. But in my heart, I've been stealing from you. I'll put on a show for you and say, Master, my King, my everything. I'm talking about Benjamins. That is who you are. You can't have my heart. You can have my antics. You can have my show. You can have my performance. But you can't have my money. It doesn't belong to you. If I take it, it's mine. That is who you are. Judas effect. We give Judas a bad rap. And we've exchanged our relationship with Jesus for lesser than 30 pieces of silver. At least he got 30. I would guess that some of our tithe were not equivalent on a pay period to $600. And when you know what your tithe is, your tenth of what you have received in your earnings, you don't take your hands off as the Bible has commanded, because you can't afford to do that. I can't afford to trust you. I can't afford to have confidence in you. I can't afford for you to do what you say you're going to do. Because I'm going to have a Judas effect in this moment. Because you understand my heart. So I'm going to take from you. And the expectation is that when I need you, you will come. When I call upon you, you will answer. And you'll kind of come from me in the clutch. And I'm going to keep stealing from you. But I will give to you if I ever hit the lottery. The more, if I make a whole lot, then I'll start giving. I know your Bible, your principle says that if I can't manage the little, I'm not faithful in the much. That principle don't mean anything. Trust me, if I win a whole lot of money, I'll start giving then. I can squander 10 ones, but if you give me 10 million, I promise I'll give it to you. Biblical principle, it ain't got to be biblical. This is just a human makes sense principle. If you're stingy with 10 ones, you'll be stingy with 10 million. It's much harder to give away money when you got millions than it is when you got 10. That's all I got. So I would like to say to all of you who are listening today, I want to challenge you to reevaluate maybe how you've looked at Judas. He's not as bad anymore when you realize he was a mirror of who we have been. But here's the great news, that even when our heart is dark, when our heart has a crack in it, Jesus still wanted us. He never said you're not good for anything. In fact, the area that we have an issue with the most, he still puts us in charge of managing something that belongs to him. Many of us are not different from Judas. I don't think for a moment that Judas hated Jesus. I even believe that Judas loved Jesus. I believe that. I think in that moment, as many of us have been tempted, we had a moment where our flesh mattered more than what the Spirit wanted. And in that brief pocket, money became my master and not my Messiah. It's a heart issue. It's a heart issue. And all he's been asking is for us to give him our heart. You made it about money. He just wants your heart. That's all he's ever wanted. We often think that if I have to operate off of 90%, I can't survive. So I need the whole 100. God can do amazing things with your 90 that you could ever do with that 100 in your hand. Because it ain't about the money. He can give you divine connections that don't cost you anything. It ain't about the money. It's about the disposition of your heart. And here's the real probing question. Where's your heart? Where's your heart? Where's your heart? Where's your heart?